Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Commander Pod, your Magic the Gathering podcast for all things Commander. I'm Spencer Simpson.
And I'm Keltson Hell. As you know, we do a lot of deck building content on this channel. It's kind of our main thing. And we've talked about tutors in some of those videos, but we have not yet given it its own episode. So today we want to jump into tutors and talk about what is, I think, a highly debated topic.
Yeah, and part of what prompted this is that Wizards do beta bracket system. We've been talking about that a little bit. They talk about tutors, and it surprised us how lenient they are with tutors in their system, because brackets 1 and 2 only say few tutors, and then outside of that, there's not a lot to be said about it, except for that they have some included in their game changers list, right?
Yeah, and the reason this was so shocking to us is that in our power level system, in our play group, we don't really run tutors until you hit high mid power. So if we're talking about low mid, high mid, and high, those first three groupings, the low to mid, we don't run hardly any tutors until you really hit like high mid.
Yeah, and then even then, like, our expectation is that you're either running narrow tutors and maybe still running some combos, but aren't really tutoring for those combos, or maybe are, but you can't. They're not so flexible that you can tutor for a combo or tutor for like heuristic study or what have you, or that you're running broad tutors to make your deck more powerful, but potentially not combos, because they're at that point they're becoming like redundancy for your combo pieces, right?
Yeah, which is totally cool in like high power games. That's what we expect in high power games. But like once you start moving down towards mid, that's not really what I think the play experiences that we're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what was like partially surprising about Wizards, is that even at their bracket 3, which I guess is like ranges from mid to mid high, they don't say anything about tutors, and the only tutors that like are limited in any way are Enlightened Tutor, Mystical Tutor, Demonic Tutor, Imperial Seal, Vampiric Tutor, and Survival of the Fittest, which are some of like the most powerful tutors out there.
Yeah.
In those colors, but like they're still playable. Like they're on the game changers list, meaning you can still play them in bracket 3, and even then in brackets 1 and 2, they don't say. Yeah, exactly. You can play 3 of them, and even then in bracket 2, they don't say no tutors. They say, okay, well, only a few tutors, and there's still a ton of tutors that are very, very good that you could be playing. They can find you like exactly, that aren't on the game changers list. So in any case, I don't think we're saying that you should not be running tutors ever, right? Yeah. But we think you should be very judicious about tutors. And why are we so judicious about tutors? It's because they're so powerful, right? They represent an extra, especially broad tutors, represent an extra copy of the best card in your deck at any moment. And the only real downside is they represent a loss in tempo, which doesn't matter in Commander as much, because you have 3 opponents that all have to worry about each other.
Sure, and you're drawing more cards generally, and there's just so few downsides. So let's talk about a tutor that isn't on the game changer list. So it technically could be run in any bracket, and that's Worldly Tutor. So Worldly Tutor is, I guess I should actually like read the card instead of just trying to get it from memory. But 1 green mana for an instant. You search your library for a creature card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. I think this is still one of the best tutors in the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like and it might not have been this tutor specifically that this happened with, but I feel like I remember us playing a bunch of games, and typically when I was including Worldly Tutor in my decks, I was including it for like combo pieces or exceptionally powerful creatures. And I just remember you like not having anything to do on turn 1, or like, and I don't know that I did either. And on turn 1, I thought you didn't at least, and then in someone's end step, you're like, okay, Worldly Tutor, get Birds of Paradise, turn 2 Birds of Paradise, right?
Sure.
And all of a sudden you're like caught up, and Worldly Tutor has found you this Birds of Paradise, which like doesn't seem incredibly powerful, except that it's like an extra copy of Birds of Paradise in your deck on early turns, and it's an extra copy of Crater Hoof Behemoth on later in the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in green decks, you can only play this in green decks. Green decks, surprise, surprise, care about creatures, usually, or have some of the best creatures. And so just being able to get any creature card that you want at any time And especially if those are combo pieces. Though, I will say, the brackets do specify what combos look like in brackets 1 and 2.
Sure.
But just even without that, Crater Hoof is like a 1-card combo that can just end the game. So just the fact that it represents that at any point during the game is just incredibly powerful. And I think in general, tutors are one of the biggest things that can increase both the consistency and the efficiency of your deck.
Yeah, 100%. Like, so I have a Wilhelt zombie deck.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me.
Aber Zombie and Lich.
Yeah, Aber Zombie and Lich. It's one of my favorites. And in this deck, I had originally been running Sidisi Undead Vizier. And there are some incidental combos because of the cards that I included in the way zombies work, right? But they're like 3-card combos, and they take a lot to set up or whatever, and they're like expensive too. Like, I specifically didn't include stuff like Phyrexian Altar, right?
Yeah.
Which is a 3-card combo but significantly cheaper, right? But the problem is when I had those 3-card combos in the deck and Sidisi, is if Sidisi ever hit the battlefield, or I could reanimate Sidisi, which zombie decks have no trouble doing. You could. We should probably read CDC.
Yeah, I was just pulling it up. I'll read it really quick. Yeah, it's 3 black for a 4/6 legendary creature zombie Naga, which has been eroded to snake. It has Death Touch and Exploit. So when this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. And when Sidisi Undead Vizier exploits a creature, you may search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library.
Yeah, so the thing here is that Sidisi can exploit itself, right? And so you sacrifice Sidisi to itself and you go search for a card at like bare minimum.
Sure.
Right?
So 5 mana tutor. Honestly, that's not that good.
Not that good. But it's also on a creature. And so in a deck where you can reanimate that, like it's even better. But even if that weren't the case, it being a below rate 5 mana tutor is still felt like it was too good in Wilhelt, because if it didn't represent a combo piece, it represented Kindred Discovery, or like whatever the best card, a Rooftop Storm, or like whatever the best card in my deck was at any given point. And it took the power level of the deck to a place I didn't want it to be, and it was just one tutor.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that there was a lot of diagnosing happening on that deck, and I think where you landed was Sidisi is the problem, and then once you took Sidisi out, you felt like the power level was a lot less volatile, and that it performed like a lot more consistently at the power level that you wanted it to.
Yeah, I mean, the deck could still do the thing it wanted to, and play some of those more powerful cards, because like where else are you playing Rooftop Storm, right? Or Kindred Discovery, if not in like a Kindred deck or in a zombie deck.
Yeah, even though those are really powerful cards, you shouldn't take those ones out. Just take out the extra copy of those.
Right, exactly. And I guess the argument can be made, like, where else are you playing Sidisi as well? But to your point, it's an extra copy of... It's not just an extra copy of one or two. It's an extra copy of any card that you need in that moment. And so I ended up taking it out because I was trying to make this a mid-power deck. And in our estimation, mid-power decks don't do that. And I think this was, like, part of the catalyst that was like, hey, we don't really play tutors in mid-power decks, because it was just like... It ended up being too powerful, and I think was one of our first lessons of like, outside of like demonic tutor, like the 6 that we mentioned that are in the Game Changers list, that like, oh, any tutor that gets you anything is just like really good.
Yeah, I remember hearing a very similar argument for fast mana. I don't remember where it was from. It might have been from the command zone. But they talked about, you have a Soul Ring in your deck because it's Commander, and apparently it defies the laws of physics. That's why every Commander deck has a Soul Ring. But as soon as you put in Mana Crypt, right, the second piece of fast mana, you've doubled your opportunity to have a hand with fast mana. Right. Which is a lot, right? And so now if you put in one tutor, even if it's a 5 mana tutor, you have now doubled your opportunity to have whatever the best card in your deck for the given scenario is. And that's why I do think that one solution, if you want to reduce the number of tutors in your deck, and like we're saying, we don't know that you should, and the brackets don't tell us whether or not we should. The brackets kind of give everyone a pass on that to say, do whatever you want. In our play group, we generally avoid it at lower power levels, and the fix is put in more card draw. right? Just run
Yes.
more card draw to find that card instead of tutoring directly for it. And you know what? You might find a different piece to the puzzle that can also help you in that situation. And it just makes it a little more fun and a little more casual.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I don't want to hit this too hard, but this is an episode about tutors. They are just like so good. And I think part of the fun of lower power games, and I think part of what brings people to Commander is the variance, right? Which is really fun. And obviously, as you move up, like you're looking for maybe lower variance and higher consistency. And we always think your deck should perform consistently at whatever power level like you want them to be, and always perform well, right? Or for the most part, perform well. But like hopefully they're doing that at lower powers. Hopefully they're doing that, and you're also seeing the
Having
variance.
higher variance.
Yeah, exactly. So you're seeing, like in one game, you're seeing Perforos, God of the Forge, and in another game, you're seeing whatever the new one is, the Agate
Instigator.
Yeah, Agate Instigator. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I like that analogy because at higher powers, your deck doing the thing means potentially like a combo line, right? Like that's the thing that your deck is trying to do. Whereas at a lower power, your thing is like maybe play a lot of birds or something like that, right? And so like you want it to perform consistently doing that thing. And so tutors help you do a more specific thing more consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like running more card advantage and running a redundant piece in your deck, which obviously that's 2 cards, right? Which like a tutor just replaces that and just does the work of both of them. But I do think like it allows you to kind of have your cake and eat it too in lower powers of higher variance and still trying to do the thing. It just introduces like, I mean, this is not, I don't think this is something we wanted to talk about, but it does like, it kind of feels like an easy way out in deck building a little bit, right? And I don't think like, and I'm not saying you shouldn't run tutors because
tutors are
kind of a little bit like they solve problems, but I don't think that's really our stance on tutors because like I like running tutors. I think they're fun. They're cool.
I do think that tutors are used to fix problems in decks though. Where I think instead you should use card advantage to fix problems. Let me give you 2 examples. So 2 decks that I've been brewing that aren't completed yet. Number 1 is a Corvold food deck. I had a Corvold deck. I didn't like how it played. That play pattern is miserable. Nobody likes playing against Corvold. And my thought is, I want a food deck, and I think a Corvold food deck would be really cool, and I'm trying to build it at a lower power. I know a lot of people say you can't build Corvold at lower power, but I'm sure as heck going to try. How does a food deck win? There's not that many food things available, and I'm not wanting to go with some of the more common food scenarios like Guillaume. I want it to do something else. And really, one of the only ways that the deck can close out the game is with like one of the Peregrine Took combos with food. Right? And so it's like a low power, like food combo Corvold deck, which just sounds horrible. It doesn't sound like it's going to work. But I have to find a way to find those combo pieces if I'm going to make it work. And tutoring would be like the really easy way to do it. But then it's no longer feeling like a lower powered deck, especially if it's a combo deck, right? If I'm tutoring for combos, that doesn't feel very low power. So I'm trying to like fix the problem, which is the deck has no way of winning except for a combo.
Right.
But the way that I need to fix that problem is just by drawing into it. And that is going to be more true to the low power play experience that I'm going for than just like band-aiding it, duct taping it with tutors, right?
Sure. To keep it instead of just jamming a Protean Hulk into your deck and then attacking with Corvold.
Yeah, exactly. So the other example is I really wanted to build a Dream Halls deck in Commander. So Dream Halls is 3 blue for an enchantment. Rather than pay the mana cost for a spell, its controller may discard a card that shares a color with that spell. I think this card would be really cool in an Oscar deck. So Oscar Rubbish Reclaimer is 3 blue-black for a 3/3 human wizard. Spells cost this spell costs one less to cast for each different mana value among cards in your graveyard. Whenever you discard a non-land card, you may cast it from your graveyard. So the combo with Dream Halls is I discard a card to cast a card. Then I can discard another card to cast the card I discarded, and then I can discard another card to cast that card that I discarded. And it's like kind of a cool loop. That sounds really fun, But in order for that to work, I need dream halls. I need to tutor for dream halls. And so I went the opposite way. Instead of saying, hey, it's kind of like a combo deck, but I want to keep it lower power, so I'm just going to try and like card draw into it. This one I want to build as a higher power deck and use tutors to band-aid that problem, where it's like the deck is trying to do a very specific thing. It's trying to have Dream Halls and Oscar on the battlefield at the same time and then just dump my hand onto the battlefield. And the way I'm going to do that is by making a higher power deck that plays much more consistently because it has tutors.
Yeah, well, I think that's like is representative of what I think is what struck me as so shocking with the bracket system is that they were like, yeah, play some tutors in low power, but like not very many. Right?
Just not these 6.
Yeah, right. Just not these 6, and like be like, be chill about it. And I just think like, and obviously we haven't put this caveat in there, but they did say that land tutors aren't on that list, right? So like your cultivate speedometry or whatever.
And I don't think we talk about those as tutors either.
No, yeah, exactly. Though they technically are, right? They do like do tutor for lands, but they're not tutoring for like a specific, right? Yeah, exactly. And I think that's like just I don't think tutors at low power are representative of the play experience that you're expecting at low power. Even if you're not comboing for something, just finding a piece that is like the best thing in a given scenario is like way too powerful. And I think this is something that I've been thinking about a lot with the bracket system that I did want to talk about just like briefly. And you shared with me the other day a video from Maldhound, who makes great content, and they were talking about their experience at MagicCon Chicago and the bracket system in the wild. And the big thing I remember him saying is that the number plus caveat formula went undefeated on the weekend, meaning that people were saying, hey, mine's a 3, or my deck's a 2, and I think that is a symptom of a larger problem, which is people are taking existing decks and saying, where does my deck fit in the bracket system? And I think what needs to happen if this bracket system is really going to work, and something that we've pushed for with our power level system, is you need to push the bracket system needs to be moved up the supply chain in the deck building and sitting down to play process to I'm building my deck because I want it to be a bracket 3 deck, not I built this deck, where does it land?
So what you're saying is right now, brackets are a matchmaking tool, which means where it gets utilized is when you sit down at the table. And then you're trying to use that as language to explain your deck. My deck is a bracket 3, but whatever, right?
Right.
And I think the way that we approach power levels on this channel and in our play group is the power level is more so a deck building guideline. So that you build the deck to a power level, then you don't need to really worry about it when you sit down trying to like match make, because you've clearly built to a power level and so has everybody else. And that's you don't have to worry about it as much.
Exactly. And that's what we experience in our play group right now, right? Is that we sit down and sometimes like people will play a precon against like a mid power deck or whatever, right? Because people just like want to play a deck and that's fine.
I do that all the time.
But for the most part, we're saying, hey, like, what are we playing? We playing mid? We playing high mid? We playing precons? Like, what's the vibe? And we just pick a deck out of our decks because we know what that represents. And my hope is that the bracket system eventually turns into that and say, here we're playing bracket 3, and no one's like, hey, mine's bracket 3, but it has 4 game changers.
But
it is playing like fast as demonic or whatever. Like I don't know. I think and obviously that's like outside of the spirit of
I think it matches up with this, because like tutors should very much be a deck building decision and have a lot to do with the power level of your deck. There is something I want to talk about with tutors, and there's an argument I think both ways on this, and that is like narrow tutors.
Sure.
So there is like a caveat that a lot of people have that's like, okay, yeah, tutors are too strong for lower power levels, but narrow tutors that are looking for something very specific. Let's maybe give like one example here. I think one that we were talking about earlier is like Open the Armory. So this is 1 and a white for a sorcery. You search your library for an aura or an equipment card. reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So in an equipment deck, this gets you an equipment, but that's it. Or an aura.
Right.
So how do we feel about those at more casual tables? Like, is this different? I mean, it's obviously different than a demonic tutor.
Yeah, I think so. For me, the follow-up question to like, hey, I'm running like narrow tutors, like, is that chill? My follow-up question is like, cool, what are you tutoring for? Right?
Sure.
Because if you're running a narrow tutor, but you're tutoring for, like, I don't know, like, I get, like, Enlightened Tutor's a game changer, and it's technically, like, kind of a narrow tutor, right?
You get an enchantment or an artifact.
Right, exactly. Or, like, something like Fabricate, right? Let's read Fabricate.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Fabricate is 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So, 3 mana, only in blue, that you are searching for an artifact, right? If you are tutoring for like an Aetherflux Reservoir or like a Bolus Assistant, like, or what?
Because
like
those are combo pieces.
Because those are combo pieces, potentially. Then I'm like, well, like, I don't know that I signed up for like that game. And if you're like tutoring for a One Ring, even, I'm like, well, I don't know that I signed up for a One Ring kind of game at like this mid power table. But
yeah,
if you're, but like.
So I like that question, like, what are you tutoring for? Because the options are kind of, in general, you're tutoring for something good.
Yeah, right.
And it's going to be a combo, or it's going to be like an advantage engine. And if you're not tutoring for one of the best things in your deck, then you're kind of sandbagging your tutor. And that feels bad, because then you could end the game and be like, oh, I could have won if I'd actually tutored for for something. Or you're like, I don't know what I should tutor for because this card is better, but this one feels more casual. And I don't know. I'm sure there's some players out there who do that very regularly and feel very good about sandbagging tutors. It's just not something that I've enjoyed doing. And so just by removing the tutor from the deck, I don't have to try and sandbag the tutor anymore. So because if I have a One Ring in my deck, I'm probably fabricating for the One Ring, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Why would I or a combo piece? But hopefully I'm not playing combo at that power level if I'm running tutors. But why would I tutor for anything except for the best target for my tutor?
Right, because and that's part of the reason we started taking out tutors, and I think is actually part of our argument for narrow tutors, right? Sure. Is because they can't just get you like the best thing. They can't get you a combo or interaction or an advantage engine at any stage that you're looking for. They are getting probably something specific, right? If you're including a tutor in your deck, it's because you're looking for something. And like, if you're looking for a Lightning Greaves with your Open the Armory, then like, cool. Like, great. That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think like,
or even something really good like a Mithril Coat or something like that. Like, there's like lots of great things that you could tutor up with that Open the Armory that doesn't feel completely busted.
Yeah, absolutely. And so maybe that's like that does push me in a little bit of an opposite direction where, cool, maybe you can actually play narrow tutors at lower power levels, and it's okay as long as like you're judicious about, at this point, about what you're tutoring for, right? So we've been judicious about the tutors we're including, and now we need to ask ourselves, well, what are we tutoring for? Because we are subscribed to the build casually, play competitively philosophy, where we're not just like, well, I could have got X, but I got Y instead because I didn't want to just like win or whatever. Because that that makes nobody feel good.
I think that's like such a good way to treat it. Because if I asked you in your Will deck, if I asked you, what are you tutoring for with CDC?
I would say it depends. Like, do I have enough things to like do a combo piece, like to like combo right now?
Okay, so potentially a combo piece.
Potentially a combo piece. Do I have enough zombies that Rooftop Storm is gonna like pop off right now?
Rooftop Storm.
Great, I'll get Rooftop Storm. Do I have like
you already have Rooftop Storm? Then what is it?
Do I already have Rooftop Storm? Do I have like Victimize or Reanimate in hand? And can I get CDC out again? Like, there's
to loop CDC. So the fact that you like already know like what are the best cards in my deck for any given situation, like that's what I'm always looking for. That would tell me that maybe that's like less of a good fit. Whereas like, if you're like, what are you getting with Open the Armory? You're like, I don't know, I've got like 30 equipment in my deck. I'm just gonna get a good equipment. Then I think that just does feel a little bit better.
I think so too. I think absolutely. So the questions are like, like what tutors should you be running? Probably in lower powers, hopefully narrow tutors, right? Like,
Yep.
and then what are you tutoring for? And that will hopefully educate if you're including tutors at lower powers, like whether or not you should be in the first place including those tutors.
I'm very excited for this part of the podcast because this is where I get to play devil's advocate and I get to say,
great.
Let's interpret things differently because you and I obviously have an opinion on tutors that has been formed by our play group and the way that we treat power levels.
Yep.
Let's just look at the brackets.
Okay.
Let's treat the brackets as long as you fit into both the letter of the law and the spirit of the law for whatever bracket it is, you have a free pass on tutors.
Okay.
Right. So as long as you're only running a few tutors in 1 and 2 and they're not going against anything else written in those brackets, then you can play any tutors you want.
Okay.
Same with 3, right? What should you play?
What tutors are you playing? Yeah, and so that's the thing is like there are so many tutors. There's only 6 tutors on the Game Changers list, and they're obviously they're the best tutors, right? But there are still like incredibly powerful tutors.
We came up with around 50 that we were excited to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the first group of these are like ones that are objectively just like very powerful tutors, right? So if we are saying we're jamming as many tutors as we can that fit within our game plan, like especially Black Bracket 3 because there's no restriction, and like this is not us encouraging you to be bad actors. I think this is to demonstrate the point that we think the bracket system should include more guidance and caveats around tutors. Right, exactly. Yeah. Whether that be making tutors a subcategory in the Game Changers list, or maybe moving tutors a little bit higher up and saying few tutors in a 2,
or even like, few tutors in a 3.
Tutors in a 3 or whatever.
Something needs to shift there because like you said, the first part of this list I think is just good ones. I don't know that we want to spend too much time talking about each individual one, but we do want to list them off. There are some though that we think could be really interesting and fun to play at lower power levels.
Yes.
So
yeah, exactly.
Let's go through the good ones really quick. Let's just break them up by color. We can take turns going through the colors. So I'll start with blue. Sure. In blue, we have Fabricate and Spellseeker, which are a couple of just very efficient tutors that can find you a lot of great answers in your deck.
Yeah, a lot of really good stuff. In green, you have stuff like Finale of Devastation, Invasion of Ikoria, Green Sun Zenith, and Court of Calling, which are like X-green spells that tutor creatures to the battlefield, which is... It just puts a 1 to 2 mana tax on whatever creature you have in your library, which is insane. You have Defense of the Heart, which tutors 2 creatures if at your upkeep an opponent has 3 creatures. And you have like Worldly Tutor, which you talked about, Sylvan Tutor, Pod Effects. Like there's just so many really good tutors that I don't know that I would always be putting in lower power decks.
Totally.
In green.
Yeah, and in black we have Sidisi Undead Vizier, which I think made this particular list, not the second list, because it's so easy to like recur.
Yes, easy to abuse for sure.
We have Entomb, we have Hoarding Broodlord, Grim Tutor, Diabolic Intent, like maybe even what's the 4 mana one? Diabolic Tutor?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, like that one could even potentially make the list here.
Yeah, and in red you have like Gamble, which is a gamble, you might discard it, or like Imperial Recruiter. Like and maybe you're not looking for a combo piece with Imperial Recruiter, but there are just like a lot of really good creatures that have power 2 or less that you can go get.
And then in white, Open the Armory, Steel Shaper's Gift, Idyllic Tutor. Even though those are pretty narrow, they're just going to potentially get the best one of that thing in your deck, which you're only playing if your deck cares about that thing.
Yeah, and then in colorless, the ones you can run in any deck, Urza's Saga, which is insane.
So good.
It gets you Soul Ring. Can't get you Mana Crypt anymore, but it can get you Sensei's Divining Top or Skull Clamp or Esper Sentinel, which we realized today, which is insane if you're playing white. And then one that I actually think people should be running more is Moonsilver Key, which is cool. Moonsilver Key is really cool.
Do you want to read this one?
Yeah, I'll read Moonsilver Key really quick. Because this is what I'm advocating for as like a cool tutor. It's 2 mana for an artifact. You pay 1, tap, sacrifice it. Search your library for an artifact card with a mana ability or a basic land card. Reveal it, put it into your hand. you get Soul Ring, right? Like,
Yeah.
this gets other combo pieces, but, like, I put this in my decks because, like, I want to go get Soul Ring for 3 mana. That's pretty sick. And then,
That's
you know,
pretty good.
play it for the next one. And it's,
It
you know,
could
it's
also
pretty
get you a
good.
basic land if you're like really
If you're
starved
hurting,
for
yeah,
lands.
you need to get a basic land. Yeah, absolutely. CDH decks run it. Kinnan runs it to get Basalt Monolith because it's part of their combo.
Oh,
Like,
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's if you're looking for combos, it's also like pretty busted. But that being said, these are all ones that are like incredibly good and make me wish that there was more guidance around tutors, because these are the type of things that like I intentionally don't play above like high mid power, which for us would be like top of bracket 3 and then a little bit in bracket 4, right?
Yeah.
Though maybe mostly towards top of bracket 3. However, this is the opposite of the list. This is the Kelton playing devil's advocate of like, hey, these are a lot of really cool tutors, the ones we're about to talk about, that maybe like are okay to run and maybe are the few tutors, right? Like, when we're saying few tutors, I think we're talking about these tutors potentially, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let's jump into it. I think a few of these could be maybe a little too powerful for like mid to lower power decks.
Sure.
But I think they're at least worth talking about because they're really fun. The first set of cards are transmute cards. I'll just mention one of them, but the 3 that we would recommend looking at are like Muddle the Mixture, Teleria West, and Dimir House Guard. So Muddle the Mixture is a 2 mana. It's blue for an instant. You counter target instant or sorcery spell. Then it has the ability to transmute. Transmute 1 blue. Discard this card. Search your library for a card with the same mana value as this card. Reveal it. Put it into your hand. Then shuffle. You can only transmute as a sorcery. So Muddle the Mixture gets a 2 mana card. Teleria West gets a 0 mana card. And Dimir House Guard gets a 4 mana card. Is that right?
4 mana card. Yep.
And it always costs 3 to transmute.
Yes. Does it always cost 3? And then the mana value?
Always costs 3.
Yeah, and there's some that are like multicolored that it's one mana and then 1 pip and then another pip. It's usually like 1 and 2 pips, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. And this is a total aside. I really like the pronunciation you decided to go with Dimir House Guard, because
there's
I
a
can never
space
decide,
between house and guard.
Yeah, because I can never decide if it's Dimir House Guard or Dimir House Guard, and so just putting equal spacing between all 3 of them, I felt like was. I've never thought to do that, and I think that's probably the correct way to say it. The next transmute, very good, and I think could be the fact that it's sorcery speed and it's so restricted, I think is really fun. Especially if you're like not looking for something. I mean, again, if you're playing stuff like this, you're probably looking for something specific. So the next question would be like, what are you including? And I think that's probably true for many
lot
of
of
these. Yeah.
Including the next group.
Yeah, I do like the next group too. The mage cycle. So you have Trinket Mage, Tribute Mage, Trophy Mage, Treasure Mage, and the newest one, Transit Mage, which all look for cards of specific artifacts of specific mana values, right?
Yeah, so they're all 2 and a blue for a 2/2 human wizard. It's all of them. And then when they enter, you get to search your library for an artifact card with a certain mana cost. You reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And so Trinket Mage gets a 1 mana card. Tribute Mage gets a 2 mana card. Trophy Mage gets a 3 mana card. Transit Mage gets 4 or 5, and then Treasure Mage gets 6 or greater.
Yeah, so I do. I listened to a little short from Play to Win, and they had a gripe about Transit Mage because Trinket Mage is 1 or less. Treasure Mage is it 6 or more?
6 or greater. Yeah.
6 or greater. So you kind of have them as like the bookends of it. And they were mad that Transit Mage is 4 or 5.
Covers 2 of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they didn't go.
I do wish we had gotten one more.
One more for the cycle. Yeah, to do 4 and then 5.
Maybe there aren't that many 4 and 5 mana artifacts
there's
that you
potentially
really
not
get.
enough currently that it justifies each of them having their own. But
I really like that Treasure Mage can get a Coveted Jewel.
Yeah,
which is one of my favorite cards.
Pretty sick in Brago. Pretty sick in a Brago
super,
deck. Where
it is in Brago and it's super busted in Brago.
It's a really cool one.
Okay, so the next category, this is the longest category. I feel like there are a lot of tutors that could be fun to play and still provide like a casual enough experience because you have to work for them, because you have to do something to turn the actual tutor part on. And the first one that I wanted to mention is actually from Ether Drift. It's a brand new one. It's called Hour of Victory, and it's 2 and a black for an enchantment. It has Start Your Engines. And then when this enchantment enters, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And once you've achieved max speed, you can pay 1 and a black, sacrifice this enchantment, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle, activate only as a sorcery. So it's a 3 mana created 2/2 zombie token. It's an enchantment. And it turns into a demonic tutor once you hit max speed.
So
I don't know how easy that is.
Minimum 3 turns. Right?
At minimum 3 turns, yeah.
Sure. So it's kind of below rate for both of those things. Below rate for getting a zombie, 5 mana over the course of several turns to tutor for something, right?
Yep.
And I guess repeatable if you're in like a deck that can get enchantments back out. I guess with like Sun Titan, this is pretty gross.
Sure, because you're always at max speed.
You keep max speed forever, which is like pretty sick.
Yeah.
But I think this is like a fun like. It sits there and you don't get something until like 3 turns. This feels kind of like a Midnight Clock-esque effect.
I like that.
Right?
But you actually have to work for it a lot more than Midnight Clock, because Midnight Clock just happens.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And this one, it can still get removed like Midnight Clock. But I like that it's an enchantment. I like that it creates a zombie. So it could maybe go in a zombie deck or maybe in an enchantment deck. And I just feel like there's something to explore here. It seems fun. It seems like an interesting way to tutor something rather than just... here's another 5 mana tutor.
Yeah, this is one that actually, one of my brews for December, now a couple months ago, was Narcy Fablesinger. Narcy Fablesinger, can I read her really quick? Because I think this would be a sick card in that deck. I've been looking for an Abzan deck, and I haven't been very excited about very many of them, and this is, I think, a cool one. Narcy Fablesinger is 1 and Abzan mana, so white, black, green for a legendary creature, human bard. She's a 3/3 with lifelink. And whenever you sacrifice an enchantment, you draw a card. And then whenever the final chapter of a saga you control resolves, each opponent loses X life, you gain X life for that saga's mana value. So you want to play a lot of sagas in Narcy. But this is a cool deck that can play both Sun Titan and Hour of Victory.
I love it.
And whenever Hour of Victory gets you sacrifice Hour of Victory to tutor, you also draw from Narcy. That's freaking cool.
That's cool. Yep, that's really cool.
Anyway, okay, I think this is a cool one.
Okay, good. I'm glad I've got you on board with at least this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some like similar ones in this vein too, right? Like Case of the Stashed Skeleton is one from what was it from? It was from Murders at Karlov Manor.
Yep.
Another one you have to work for. Oh, I searched Case of the, which was a stupid idea because everything is Case of the.
They're all patterned after that. Yeah, this one's a 2 mana enchantment that creates a 2/1 skeleton that has menace and can't block. And then if you control no suspected skeletons, so if you're able to get rid of the token or someone blocks it or something, then the case becomes solved. And then the next turn, you can pay 2 and sacrifice it to Demonic Tutor.
Because you can only do this as a sorcery. So it is a 1-turn clock until you get to tutor once it's solved.
Nice. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so this one, like, you can put in a deck if you're able to sacrifice the skeleton, or if you care about, like, combat damage triggers, then it, like, forces people to block it, but you get compensated by getting to tutor. Yeah, once again, lots of fun ways to try and, like, work this card, but you have to put in work and mana and a card and, do something.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, another tangent that this is made me think of. Do you think they're ever going to print a card that says you can activate abilities? Like,
where if it says activate only as a sorcerer, you can ignore the timing restriction.
Yes, because they did one with the exhaust abilities, right? Which clearly overrides, like, because exhaust you only activate once, and they also activate only once, but there's one that's like you can activate them more than once, right?
I don't think so.
Probably not. That breaks a lot of stuff.
They will. Yeah, there's not really like I'm trying to think of how that would even be templated or how that would work with the rules, and I don't know that there's a very clean way.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there's a way to do that. But it made me wonder because they do have like, stuff that lets you cast stuff at flash.
I guess you could just have something that says like activated abilities of creatures you control can be activated at any time.
Yeah,
Anytime could be
yeah,
activated anytime you could cast an instant.
yeah.
That's So
Interesting.
maybe actually that sounds like a card.
Could be something. Could be kind of cool. Definitely takes a lot of these things and breaks them, which is kind of cool.
Totally.
Um,
Very similar to case of the stashed skeleton is Servant of the Stinger, which is 1 and a black for a 1/3 human warlock. It has Death Touch. When it deals combat damage to a player, if you've committed a crime, you can sacrifice Servant of the Stinger to search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and shuffle. This one's cool.
I forgot about the committed a crime caveat there because if it
Yeah,
was just
you have
when
to
this deals
work
combat
for it.
damage and you get to search,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
Because it is a 1/3 death toucher. So like
Yeah.
you're usually trading up at least.
Yeah, I mean, this is if it didn't have the crime caveat, this is basically a 2 mana. This is just a demonic tutor over 2 turns, right?
So the nice thing is you can wait until after they've declared blockers to commit
A crime. That's pretty nasty.
Yeah, that's
pretty
cool.
gross.
Another one that relies on combat damage is Ayara's Oathsworn, which is 2 mana for a 2/2 menace that when it deals combat damage to a player, if it has fewer than 4 +1/+1 counters on it, you put a counter on it. Then if it has exactly 4, you get to search your library for a card and put it into your hand.
This requires a lot more work, though.
Tons of work.
Yeah,
What
unless
a
you can
cool
just like
knight.
slam counters on it, but
It's also just a 2 mana 2/2 menace knight that grows.
Yeah,
So
that's
this
true.
goes in a knight deck and it's super cool. And then sometimes you'll get to like tutor for a card, which sounds
Yeah,
super fun.
that's pretty sick. That's pretty sick.
There are a couple of sagas that I really like. There's one from Modern Horizons 3. It's the Creation of Avacyn. It's 1 black for a saga. This one does not have read ahead. And I mention that because the next one we're going to talk about does. The first chapter of this one is that you search your library for a card, exile it face down, then shuffle. The second chapter, you turn the exiled card face up. If it's a creature card, you lose life equal to its mana value. And then the third chapter is you get to put the exiled card onto the battlefield if it's a creature. If you don't put it onto the battlefield, you put it into its owner's hand. This is slow. There is huge potential for blowout, and it's everything I want to see in a tutor at a lower power table.
Yeah, when I first read this, I was like, oh, it's like at worst Grim Tutor, but the problem is you exile the card face down first, and then if this gets destroyed, then it's just gone. That card's gone forever.
Well, and even worse, you exile it, then the next turn you lose life equal to its mana value if it's a creature card, and then they destroy this. Then you've exiled the card, lost the life, and you don't get to do anything else.
This is like premier low power tutor because
It's awesome.
you show them, you say, okay, here's what it is. You can destroy this now. If
It's
if
kind
you
of
don't
got
want
like
to have this.
suspend, right? It's got like
Yeah.
bad suspend.
Yeah, bad interactable suspend.
Interactable suspend. So it also kind of just puts a clock on the game though, which is fun. Like in a low power deck. If I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go get Crater Hoof, I'm gonna lose. How big is Crater Hoof? It's like 7 mana. How much does Crater Hoof cost?
I think it's 8.
8. So I'm gonna lose 8 life, but know that it's coming down next turn if you can't do anything to interact with this.
Yeah, this is cool. I'm also just realizing that all of these but 3 in this list are black.
Or black.
tutors.
I know.
Yeah. So,
That's because black
clearly-
tutors. That's like part of black's color identity.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So if we're breaking out of the black tutor identity and getting into some green, really cool one is we were still talking about sagas.
Well, I wanted to just mention Cruelty of Gix really quick.
Yes,
Because it is
let's
a
talk about
saga.
Cruelty of Gix. This is a sick one.
It's 5 mana. It does have read ahead, so you can kind of skip ahead and do one of the later chapters. But the first one is that you get to make an opponent discard a creature from their hand. Choose an opponent, look at their hand, discard a creature card, or Planeswalker. The second one is you get to search your library for a card, put it into your hand, shuffle, you lose 3 life. So that's what is it? Is that a Grim Tutor? Is that what Grim Tutor does? Same.
Yeah, same
basically.
thing, but for more mana. Yeah.
And then the third one is you get to put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So at 5 mana, it's a Grim Tutor that then also reanimates something, which is really cool and really good. Maybe this one's too powerful. I don't know.
I think it's good. I think it's really good, flexible card that can tutor for something and can get best case scenario, you get like a really cool creature out of your opponent's hand and then get it back 2 turns later too.
Yeah. This
Which
one
is
might
pretty
be too
sick.
powerful, but I don't know.
Maybe
If
among
you don't-
others on this list too.
If you don't read ahead, if you start with the first one to try and get the full value off of it, then it can get blown out pretty easily. because then you've paid 5 mana for like a really bad discard spell.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's a really cool card. It's one that I want to run more after talking about it for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about some green ones that you have to work for. Sorry for cutting you off when we were just about to get to the best saga that we were talking about. But these are some cool ones that you had found. The first one being the one I'm kind of less excited about. The second one I'm more excited about. So
okay,
that one is Threats Undetected. Let me read that really quick. Threats Undetected is kind of a fixed version of Gifts Ungiven.
Sure.
Yeah, Threats Undetected is 2 and a green for a sorcery, and you can search your library for up to 4 creature cards with different powers and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards, and you shuffle the chosen cards into your library and put the rest into your hand. That's pretty good to be able to go find. I mean, you get the 2 that maybe you want least, but your opponent also doesn't know what cards you already have in hand. So
it's 3 mana, get your 3rd and 4th best creatures.
Sure.
Yeah.
At worst, right? And maybe your opponent doesn't know which one's the best one for you in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this one is like very playable and
super cool.
I like that it creates like a mini game. It involves your opponents. It's not just like straight up tutoring for a card.
Yes, I like this and Factor Fiction. I love Factor Fiction.
Yeah, those are fun effects.
Fun. Yeah.
What about this next one? You like this one even better?
Yeah, it's Ecological Appreciation from Strixhaven. It's a mythic, which makes me excited because it's a mythic that people aren't playing and maybe should be playing. It's X2 green for a sorcery. Search your library and graveyard, which is relevant, for up to 4 creature cards with different names that each have mana value X or less and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards, shuffle the chosen cards into your library, and put the rest onto the battlefield. Exile
so for
Ecological Appreciation.
7 mana, you get your 3rd and 4th best 4 drops onto the battlefield.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
I think that's
there's
fun.
Potentially like a better version of this, but the fact that it's so flexible, I think, is cool because also for 5 mana, you get your 3rd and 4th best 2 drops.
Yeah,
just onto the battlefield, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, which could be like enablers or payoffs for whatever your strategy is. And that's sweet.
And that's like at worst too, right? Because your opponent doesn't know which are the worst ones for you to have in any given moment. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I think those are some really good examples. We won't read through all these. There's quite a few more. We'll just list off some of them, show them on the screen, and then you can check them out yourselves. We have Rushed Rebirth from Strixhaven, Magda Brazen Outlaw from Kaldheim, Vargoth's Bloodsky Sire from Kaldheim, Wishclaw Talisman from... I was doing these from memory. Throne of Eldraine, Mausoleum Secrets from Return to Ravnica, and Demonic Council from Duskmourn. Think I got all those right, but I'm not sure. Thanks for the assist there. The next category were ones that get little things. We only included a few cards here. We'll just give one of them as an example and then show the other 2 on the screen. Guardian Sunmare is a new card from Aetherdrift. It is 3 white for a 5/5 horse mount with Ward 2. Whenever this creature attacks while saddled, you search your library for a non-land permanent card with mana value 3 or less, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. It does have saddle 4, so it is a pretty expensive saddle cost.
Yeah, so this is one you still also kind of have to work for, but is like a Sun Titan that tutors your library.
From the deck?
Yeah. Which is so cool. It doesn't get lands, and I think that's something I forget about I'm talking about Sun Titan on this episode. I like Sun Titan, and I want to play it more. I just don't play enough white. Doesn't get lands, so you can't it doesn't ramp you. But there are lots of really good 3 drops.
Yeah, but it gets you a Soul Ring. It doesn't have to be a land.
Yeah, totally. It gets you a Soul Ring, gets you a It has Ward 2, and it gets you a is it legendary? It's not legendary.
No.
So you can't go get Mithril Coat and it just equips, which would be really cool. But you can go get Greaves and you equip Greaves to it, and you
equip Greaves to it. Very good.
Really cool.
A couple of other ones that have been printed recently that also get little things are like Bright Glass Gear Hulk from Aetherdrift or Lively Dirge from Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about narrow tutors, so we wanted to include some narrow tutors on this list. One of my favorites is Step Through, which has wizard cycling. So let me tell you, Step Through. So cool. Step Through is 3 blue for a sorcery that returns 2 target creatures to their owner's hands, which is pretty good, but it has wizard cycling for 2 mana. You discard Step Through and search your library for a wizard card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. So if you have a cool wizard you want to go get, include Step Through that is removal that also doubles as getting you your favorite or best, probably best, wizard out of your library, which is pretty sick.
Totally. A card that plays similarly is like Goblin Matron. It's just a goblin that gets another goblin. And there's a lot of very good utility cards that just happen to be goblins. So that actually just kind of acts as another copy of that goblin that you're looking for, right?
Yeah, I think with a lot of these tutors still, like, just to jump back, the thing to remember is, okay, we're playing tutors, and we're playing some narrow tutors or tutors you have to work for. The next question is, what are you tutoring for? And make sure that even if you're playing at a low power, you're not tutoring for Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation, or whatever.
Is Thassa's Oracle a wizard?
It is a wizard, yeah.
Okay, so if you're playing Step Through so that you can wizard cycle for Thassa's Oracle, this is not a low power tutor that you should be playing, right?
No.
So some other like great narrow tutors that you should take a look at are Waterlogged Teachings, Ring Sight, Reckless Handling, Shadowrite Priest, Micromancer, Moonblessed Cleric, Goblin Matron, and Search for Glory. Those are all like fairly fun ones that vary in narrowness. Some are extremely narrow, some are much less narrow, but they all are restricting you in some way on what it is that you're searching for.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last ones here are big tutors. So the first one being Tooth and Nail, which I think was just a premier one for a long time in Commander. I
think it's still premier. I think people should be playing it.
You think people should be playing Tooth and Nail more? I mean, especially in
Absolutely.
green. You've been playing enough mono green that you're like,
yeah,
everyone should be playing Tooth and Nail. 9 mana is nothing.
Let me read you Tooth and Nail, and I'll tell you why I think everyone should play it. 5 green for a sorcery. Choose one. Search your library for up to 2 creature cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle, or put up to 2 creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. It has Entwined 2, which means if you pay an extra 2, which is 9 mana, you get to search your library for 2 creature cards and put them onto the battlefield. The reason I think you should play this is because if you resolve a 9 mana spell, it's okay for the game to end.
Sure, okay.
So if I resolve this and it does not get countered, if it gets countered, it's a blowout. I've wasted a turn and a card and 9 mana, right? There's no recovering from that.
Right.
If it resolves, I probably win the game. And that's okay, in my opinion.
Even at lower powers, you think?
Yeah, I mean, like a lower power game, I expect to end between turns like lower and low mid, like 8 to 12, sometime in there.
Sure.
And like, yeah, like because I'm probably not fetching like a 2-card creature combo that just like instantly ends the game.
Sure,
but I'm probably getting like
generating a massive advantage somehow.
A massive advantage that's going to end the game in the next like 2 turns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So because that's the like what I was thinking of is like if say we take that down like 1 mana to like 8 mana,
Sure.
right? Jin Gataxias, the core augur or whatever, is has been deemed a game changer, and
Sure.
like technically wins you the game if it doesn't get removed, right, on each subsequent player's turn, like. Basically, like makes their hand size
Yeah.
zero, right?
Virtually gives you, unless they can remove it. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, I'm not going to get a 2-card creature combo with this probably, unless I'm playing higher power. Then I totally am, and that's great. But at lower power, I feel like I can still play this and just get like 2 giant beaters.
Yeah, right. You get like a Coma, Cosmos Serpent, and like an Avenger of Zendikar or whatever. And you just they both slam down. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think so too. I just and you're less likely to get blown out, right? So like if you're running this in higher, like this one I think is a really good example of one that you play anywhere, right? Because you play it at low powers, you're less likely to get blown out. You're less likely to also like end the game immediately. At higher powers, more likely to get blown out. But if it resolves, you are winning the game, I would hope.
Yep. Yeah, another similar one that costs a lot of mana because you still have to play the creatures is like Shared Summons. 3 green. For an instant, it's an instant. That's so good. You search your library for up to 2 creature cards with different names, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. You still have to play the creatures. So it's like, once again, if I got Coma and Avenger of Zendikar, I still have to spend the next 2 turns playing those cards. And I've taken a turn off to get them into my hand. So it's like it doesn't immediately end the game.
Sure, but now you don't have to entwine Tooth and Nail.
Sure. It's still a worse rate than Tooth and Nail. I'd still rather play Tooth and Nail.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so those are some that we think are worth trying out at some of the lower brackets or power levels, or however your play group decides to talk about tutors. Overall, tutors are extremely powerful. You need to be really careful in how you're playing them, but be judicious with them. And we do think that there does need to be a little bit more guidance from Wizards when it comes to tutors within the brackets.
Yeah, but if you are playing tutors, especially at the lower power levels where they say that it's acceptable to play a couple tutors, also be judicious about what you are tutoring for. That is the next question to ask yourself is, do I want to be running tutors? Great. What am I tutoring for? And I think that would solve a lot of problems around tutors. And that being said, Wizards needs to include more guidance about it.
Love it.
The end.
That's awesome. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Come join us in the Discord. We'd love to hear what your thoughts on this are. Like and subscribe. And until next time, remember